Big moves by Tesla today. First, there was news that Tesla signed another substantial lease, taking control of 1 million square feet of industrial space just south of Giga, Texas. They increased their original plans from last year by adding another 144,000 square feet. And in a surprise, Elon visited Giga Berlin today as they were able to turn on the lights after last week's arson attack that cut its power supply. This is fantastic news as Tesla was able to get back to production much faster than the initial estimates. So today we have Brian White joining us. He has his own YouTube channel called FutureAza. Welcome, Brian.
Good morning. These are some great topics, and I think we found some pretty good insights to talk about. So let's do that.
Yeah, you're the perfect person as you follow the Giga factories quite closely. And so that's why this is perfect for me to ask you what's happening here. So the news is they signed another lease in Kyle, Texas, which is south of Giga, Texas. They're expanding their real estate portfolio in the Austin area, taking control of 1 million square feet in Kyle, a suburb just south of Giga, Texas. Now, this is news that they've already had previously last year reported that they were expected to lease 3 buildings, and they thought it was for storage and light assembly, about 20 miles from downtown Austin. These 3 buildings make up nearly 1 million square feet, but it turns out they weren't satisfied with that. They're going to grow just a little bit more by 144,000 square feet. So now they've got 1 million across buildings 1, 2, 3, and 5. So why don't we pause there for a second? What's your thoughts on that?
So this is, when we saw it last year, there was all kinds of rumors, of course. Oh, is this going to be a car factory? Is it going to be a battery factory? But it looked like it was just going to be logistics. It was going to be warehousing of some sort. But for what and why so large? Could be anything. I was ready to hang tight and wait for more information, and it looks like we finally got the more information. But it's not unusual for manufacturers like this to have ancillary buildings near their primary facility. If you look at Fremont, they've got the Cato Road facility, which is just down the street. And they've got other buildings in the area as well. If you look at their Palo Alto operations, where the design center is, they've got several buildings within about a mile of each other. There are a lot of things that work in that way. So we were waiting, and now we've got better information.
Right. And then you wanted to point out that there is another article that talked about this, that in addition to that news, they also, there's recently listed new job openings in Kyle, and they're all related to battery cells. So you got a supervisor of supply quality engineering, incoming quality supervisor for cell manufacturing, and a technician for cell battery. So what's this? You think that it's going to be more battery cells? Yeah.
Yes. So let's talk about this slide here. The first one you could look at and say, oh, well, it's a supply chain supervisor. That could just be warehousing, but it says quality engineering. So, I mean, for just a supply house, that could be the machines that move things around, like in an Amazon warehouse. That's not surprising. But then you see cell manufacturing, and yeah, so these could be here. You want to hear my crazy theory? This could be where the LFP machines are going. We know that Tesla purchased
for Model 3s
for the compact. Well, I mean, for anything really, but we know that Tesla purchased equipment from CATL that is designed specifically to make LFP batteries. Now, could that also be used to make other kinds of batteries? Probably. But if it's LFP specific, we know that there is a need for Tesla to use LFP batteries. They use them in stationary storage. They use them in megapacks and power walls, but they also use them, we believe they will also use them in the compact car coming up. And as you just said, they also already are using them in the Model 3. And we saw an article just yesterday that there's now some people who may be getting an LFP pack if their 2170 pack on their Model 3 dies under warranty and they need an entire pack replacement. Why not, if the range is comparable, give them an LFP battery instead? The benefit to doing this is the LFP batteries that they've been using so far do not qualify for the federal incentives. So if you need 2 packs and one of them's an LFP and one of them is not, if one of them is made in the US and one is not, then why don't you give that one that is made in the US to the new car so it can qualify for the incentives, and the imported pack to a warranty replacement where it doesn't matter in terms of the tax situation. So that is part of that shift to LFP. LFP is just a great chemistry. It's not exciting. It's a workhorse. So in terms of this facility in Kyle, Texas, are they going to be building their own cells there? Are they going to be making LFPs of their own in-house that could go into the new compact model that we know is going to be coming out of Texas? It would make sense, especially with the cost of LFP batteries getting as cheap as they are. If you're making the cells and the pack, the company can qualify for up to $45 per kilowatt hour. So $4,500 per watt hour, at up to $4,500 for a 100 kilowatt hour pack. If you're talking 50, then it's $2,200. It's a lot of money, and it adds up real quick when you're talking about a car that's only 25 grand. That could be 10% of the cost of the car is already being paid for just because you made the batteries yourself in the US. A facility of 1 million square feet is big enough to make a whole lot of batteries. It is not as big as Giga Nevada, certainly, but it is about as big as the 4680 section of Giga Texas, if you include the upper floors, which you certainly should. I haven't yet seen how much vertical space they have, how much ceiling height they have at the Kyle location. I'll pull up some maps, some images on Google Maps later and see if I can find it. But they're very good at using their vertical space, their cubic space, and it would be a logical move to start taking steps in that direction, especially when you've got a big pile of cash and you're looking for smart ways to deploy it. Make your own LFPs 20 miles away from the factory. And I don't know if it's 20 miles away from it says 20 miles from Austin, but it's still very, very close. So I think there are a lot of fun things to speculate and no bad outcomes.
Yeah, can you give us an update on what's happening with the 4680 batteries? I know you were following very closely the dry cathode building. What's new and what can we expect? Are they now ramping up very quickly as they were hinting that they were headed towards to do?
That is the hope. If you watch the building itself, it's been closed off for months. My projection was always that it would be close to operation sometime around the end of the year. And that's about the time we saw the chilling tower, the cooling towers, begin spinning in earnest. And if you look at drone footage now, you'll see that the cooling towers, which is indicative of activity inside, are almost all spinning almost all the time. So whatever they're doing in there, they're getting it dialed in and ramped up. We don't know if the dry cathode has made it to the production line yet at the adjacent building, the main Giga Texas building. But if it hasn't made it, it should soon. This is one more step that will simplify the production of those batteries. So I had a chance to talk with Jordan Giesecke from The Limiting Factor last week, and I asked him, how is it possible that Giga Texas could be making 100 gigawatt hours a year from such a small corner of the building when Giga Nevada is vastly bigger and was only originally rated to make 35 gigawatt hours a year? And his answer was, the dry process saves that much space. Instead of having, a quarter mile of kilns to dry the components, it can still just keep going with a dry process without having to use up so much space. They're already using a dry electrode. This would be a dry cathode. And the cathode building is separate. It's a much smaller building, but it still doesn't count against that square footage in that corner. So it's a big deal, and it's apparently on track. We know that one line is in making 4680s, and it appears to be ramped well, if not fully ramped. Joe Tegmeyer, the drone pilot, has reported that there are as many as 7 more lines already being installed and configured now, which is what would be needed to get to those kinds of figures. And what we have seen that supports the theory that the ramp is going well is a substantial increase in Cybertruck production, and they are all using 4680. They haven't switched to 2170 or some kind of backup battery. They are still using 4680, and until we see a flattening off of Cybertruck production, we can assume that the 4680 ramp continues going well.
Great. Thank you for that update. I haven't been following this closely, and I know you have been, and great that you interviewed Jordan. Fantastic news. Good info there. So let's continue with the other information here. So we've got another thing that happened was Elon visited Giga Berlin this morning, and they released this new video, which we'll watch here. Basically, Giga Berlin's lights back after they had this arson attack that shut down the transformer and the power last week. So let's watch this video.
Unstoppable force.
Lower the volume. Nice. Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that. That was my fault. Yeah. I was trying to figure out how to not play the music because you know how this can get copyright caught there. So I was just trying to play around. Sorry about that, guys. So this video came from Tesla Manufacturing, basically showing, hey, we're not going to be stopped. We're going to, deal with this arson attack. Crazy. I want to hear your opinion on that. And of course, Elon visited Giga Berlin, and he's expected to do a team huddle with employees at the plant. Employee Council Chief Michael Schmidt said Elon shouted "Deutschland rocks, Germany rocks" to the press. Here's a photo of him arriving. Thoughts on these developments, Brian?
Sure. So first of all, I love that they felt the need to translate Deutschland rocks in case. Anyway, that's hey, better safe than sorry, right? So I had a chance to talk with Jan Vogel from Tesla Fix yesterday, where we discussed everything about this situation, and the group behind it is, of course, terrible. Now, they're not as inconsistent as some of the other eco groups. These guys did protest at a big auto show. So they're saying all cars are bad, great, but they don't go out and protest at BMW or Mercedes or Volkswagen or anyone involved in Dieselgate. No, this is about water, our water. Well, right, but the coal mine, the nearby coal mine, is a lignite mine, brown coal, the dirtiest of the coals, and they don't protest the fact that they take 100 times as much water, an amount that is over their permit amount. So they're not protesting there. A nearby asparagus farm uses twice as much water. Are we going to protest asparagus next? Because if it's about groundwater, we need to be consistent, but it's not about being consistent. The good news is government has stepped up and said, we are assigning a special task force to investigate this. We will be aggressively pursuing this case to see if we can get to the people involved and hold them to account, which would be great. The development this morning was that the police have set a deadline for the protesters to move out of the adjacent forest. Now, it's crazy because this forest is not a real forest. It's a farm. It's a tree farm. It doesn't have rich biodiversity. It's got trees. There's not enough sunlight getting through the canopy to the ground to support all the other kinds of plant life that would bring animals in that would live there. It's a dead forest. So, and it's them being there right now is pointless because this is not harvest season. This is, bats hibernating season. You couldn't cut the trees down if you wanted to. So they're just really being a nuisance. So the police have set a deadline. If you're not out by this date, we will begin taking steps to remove you from this space, which is likely to just give them more attention, which is what they want anyway. Terrible people doing terrible things, very misguided attempts at saving the future. But what are you going to do? So the fact that they were able to get this back online in 6.5 days is fantastic. I don't know anything about what it takes to normally restore power in a situation like this, but I do know the kinds of transformers that were burned are not in infinite supply. You don't just go down to the warehouse and grab another one and slap it in. You have to get it. You have to source it and get it in and then install it. And high voltage, the linemen who install things like this are also very specialized, also in high demand, also are paid quite a lot. And when you get them in at the last minute, it costs extra. So what this is going to do, it's not going to affect Tesla as much. It's going to affect the local situation, because the police will have to set up additional safeguards to try and prevent clowns like this doing stupid things like this. And when you're attacking soft targets like infrastructure, the number of targets is nearly infinite. So all they're doing is wasting their own tax money on truly stupid, pointless things. But it's being addressed, I guess, hopefully.
So Brian, this obviously doesn't make sense, right? You've just explained it. Eco warriors, eco terrorists, basically doing this arson attack on Tesla. I mean, unless they really bought into the idea that batteries are evil. But a conspiracy theory, Brian, is there a chance that this could have been funded by Legacy Auto, big oil? You know, the threat to industries is pretty big.
Sure. So I would say the first thing to remember is these may not be people who hate specific. I think they're people who just hate cars, hate expensive cars, hate capitalism. There are a lot of radical anti-capitalists and anarchists, really, who say, no, everything should be, walkable cities. Great. Let's tear down $100 trillion worth of cities and build them from scratch. We don't have the budget. And a lot of Germany's already walkable. I think we're missing the point there. So then the question is it funded? And the conspiracy theorists would say it's directly funded. I think that's unlikely. I think what they are is indirectly funded. It's very easy if you've got enough money, it's very easy to just throw some token support behind some crazies and see what happens. Now, I don't know if the fossil fuel industry has any revenue to spare with their paltry $100 billion a day of profit, but maybe it would be a rounding error for them to throw it doesn't take much money to motivate people. If you look at some causes, even hundreds of dollars, even if thousands of dollars as a donation is often enough to keep these people motivated. So in terms of indirect funding from nefarious groups, it is 100% plausible, and I'd say 50 to 80% likely. And the list of companies, of organizations that would be willing to step in to try and benefit is endless.
Yeah, almost always protesters are funded. They are funded to do what they need to do. Yeah, this was great, Brian. This is information you shared, just crazy on the batteries, on the expansion, of course, now in the Giga Berlin attack. Thank you very much for sharing that. You have incredible knowledge, and I appreciate you sharing that with my audience. Please follow Brian on his YouTube channel, FutureAza. Check him out. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.